Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Wild Bill for America.
Thank you, Lord. Hello, everybody. I am very proud to be a part of this celebration today, and thank you, Lloyd, for putting this on. I spent 20 years as a law enforcement officer, and I can tell you that when you wear the badge, sometimes the gratitude of the citizens is not something you hear a lot about, even though we know that it's always there. And I see we're going to hear from Chief Chitwood today, a man who has as many law enforcement awards as anybody I've ever known. But I just want you to know that I have one that the chief does not. As far as I know, I still hold the record for wrecking police cars down in Broward County, Florida.
We may have to talk about that afterwards.
I did 2 cars in 2 nights. Let's see you top that one, Chief. Well, anyway, my name is Bill Fenley, but on the internet, I'm known as Wild Bill for America. And my mission is calling this nation back to the God and country values that founded this nation, and values that I am determined that were the keys to the success of the United States of America. And today, though, the moral and cultural issues of the USA have degenerated to the point where our law enforcement officers are actually being assassinated in our streets. Assassinated for being law enforcement officers. In particular, being white law enforcement officers. Well, I stand here today as an American citizen to say that we, the people of the United States, will not tolerate such evil. We stand with the men and women who wear the badge, and we will do whatever it takes to clean up this disgraceful behavior and to ensure that the people who foster such attitudes will no longer be tolerated in American society. Now, I've worked around the world in many nations, and I have seen how people live in Africa, Asia, the Caribbean, South America. And I can say with all confidence that American law enforcement is one of the best things about living in the USA. Their subtle presence in our communities is a security blanket for 300 million Americans, whether they realize it or not. I turned 60 years old this week, and you know what that means. I grew up with the greatest lawmen in America as my role models. Matt Dillon, the Lone Ranger, Rooster Cogburn, one Adam 12, one Adam 12, and, of course, Barney Fife. Those were also the days of strong, trustworthy father figures. Leave It to Beaver, Father Knows Best, Family Affair. Those TV shows helped to set the tone for American society. They featured strong families and law and order communities based on the God and country principles of our founding fathers. Now, some people ridicule us when we talk about the good old days. But those of you who were there know that in many ways those days were the best of the USA. But something happened back in the 60s. The USA was pulled into a hard left turn off that road of respect for God and country, strong families, and law and order communities. A movement began to bring down things that were good about the USA. That movement generally came to be known as the left. Hollywood enthusiastically joined the movement and began to change their programming. Television shows with strong, trustworthy fathers were replaced with shows where fathers were shown as buffoons. And morally upright law enforcement officers like Matt Dillon were replaced with shows where cops were portrayed as basically criminals with badges. These changes had a tremendous impact on the thinking of the nation. Far too many people get their opinions from Hollywood rather than real life. And as America walked away from her founding principles, strong families began to break down to the point where today, broken families and fatherless children are the norm. And what an impact that has had on our neighborhoods. Fatherless children running wild in the cities, and what many people fail to realize is that often the only father figure they have is the police officer on the beat. He is the only one to set limits on their behavior. And I know from experience that those officers spend time talking to those young people when they're not chasing them. But the media and the left don't seem to be interested in how American law enforcement officers are often good examples to the young men and women of this nation. And even though there were some very bad cultural changes that came about in the 60s, there was something else that happened in the 60s, something that can give us great encouragement today. Americans, both black and white, marched shoulder to shoulder to put an end to white racism in America. And the success of their efforts changed our culture for the better. I truly believe that racism would have died out in this country a long time ago, except that some people figured out that racism can be very profitable, both financially and politically. And the shameful art of skin color politics was born. Racial attitudes seem to be playing a large part in the nonsense that is coming against our law enforcement officers today. And I can tell you right now that it is not America's law enforcement officers that need to be fixed. What needs to be fixed is the bad attitudes that have been cultivated in our communities. It was 40 years ago when black and white Americans marched shoulder to shoulder to stomp out white racism. Today, American citizens, both black and white, must once again march shoulder to shoulder, this time to help put an end to black racism in America. Now, there's an old law known as the law of sowing and reaping. It comes to us from the Bible, and in it the Son of God tells us that whatever seed a man sows in his field, that is the crop he's going to reap. Well, for a long time now, we have allowed bad people to sow bad seed into our communities, in our education system. Bad seed has been sown throughout our entertainment industry. And bad people have been sowing bad seed in Washington, D.C. And today, as a result of that, we are reaping a crop of corruption, violence, racism, broken families, and blatant disrespect for authority. The chaos we are reaping today is to the point where it is now threatening basic freedoms that we hold sacred in this country. Well, here's a wild bill bullet of truth for America. If we want to reap a better crop, we need to start sowing better seed into our communities. Now, I wish I had a magic wand solution that could be waved over the USA to magically fix things, but that's just not the way things work. Sowing better seed into our communities is going to take hard work and courage. And the first step is to engage in bold, truthful talk about the problems that we are facing. Educators in our schools who foster the attitude of permanent victimhood, they need to be run out of town on a rail and replaced with educators who know how to bring out the best in our young people. Politicians who pander to those who stir up racist attitudes need to be publicly challenged and defeated. And the young people of America need to have strong moral role models. And I cannot think of a better group of people to hold up as role models than America's law enforcement officers. Now, I'm going to do what I can. My Wild Bill for America videos recently clicked over 15 million views on YouTube, and I'm going to keep pounding the drum. And in about 2 weeks, I'm going to start a new mission right here in Volusia County, a new radio talk show on 1380 AM that will be simulcast around the world on the internet. And the new show will be called, believe it or not, Outlaws Chapel Radio. And it will be all about hard-hitting, bold discussion on the problems this nation is facing and to unapologetically put forth solutions to those problems, getting back to the God and country values that founded this nation. Blue Lives Matter is one of the top issues in this nation, and the threats to our law enforcement officers is a good example of what happens when we allow bad seed to be sown in our communities. So be watching for Outlaws Chapel Radio on 1380 The Cat, and please join me in using this new show to take on those who are sowing bad seed in our community. Now, I always sign off my Wild Bill for America videos by saying, America bless God, again. And some people take me to task for that, saying, Bill, you have that backwards. We should be asking God to bless America. And to that I say, God has blessed America, and look what we've done with it. The Old Testament has multiple verses about people and the nation of Israel blessing God by honoring Him and obeying Him. And it's time for us to get back to doing exactly that. Ronald Reagan once said, "If we ever forget that we are a nation under God, we will be a nation gone under." Well, we are getting dangerously close to that. And if we expect to defeat the racism that is threatening our law enforcement officers and our law and order communities, then Americans need to stand up and speak out loud and clear. Our law enforcement officers are in danger today partly because we, the people, have failed to vigorously challenge the bad guys that we knew were sowing bad seed in our communities for decades. Well, right now, I am making a commitment to our law enforcement officers that I will no longer be silent when it comes to their lives. And I will speak out boldly to rebuild the respect that American law enforcement officers deserve. And I'm calling upon all Americans to join me in that effort. Well, thank you for letting me be a part of this celebration today. And America, bless God again.